Ladies and gentlemen, as we now move to the next phase of our conference, we begin the post-lunch session, that I should call it a very strong and a very powerful discussion titled as Logistics, Credit and Insurance. This particular session will focus on three critical pillars that support the RISE trade ecosystem, ladies and gentlemen. Efficient logistics for seamless export movement, accessible credit for traders and the processors, and the comprehensive insurance solutions that safeguard agri-businesses from market to climate risk. We have with us a distinguished set of speakers and the experts who will be sharing their remarkable opinions and perspectives on strengthening these enablers to make the Indian rice sector more competitive and resilient. Joining us on the stage to moderate this one-of-a-kind session, we have a personality who is an assistant editor at the Financial Express, covering agriculture, commodities, and the food processing sectors. He specializes in data-driven reporting on crop output, agri-policy, and export trends, contributing regularly to the paper's agri-economy and trades coverage. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Sandeep Das. He's the assistant editor at the Financial Express. Can we have a huge round of applause as he makes his way to the stage? After lunch, I'm expecting a bit high note on energy, so bit louder. Thank you. Thank you. Joining us as a set of panel, we have a personality who is listed as a director at the Rajesh Global Food GmbH, a Munich, the Dachau-based importer and wholesaler of Indian food products, notably basmati and non-basmati rice, spices, pulses, mango pulp, and select frozen items. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the kind and wise presence of Ms. Sweta Bakshit. Can we have a round of applause as she makes her way to the stage? Moving on, we have a personality who is the founder of Agri Guru Online and director of Agri C Group India, Dubai, driving digital transformation in agricultural trade through AgriGuru's online and mobile platforms. He aims to create an unified global marketplace for agri-commodities. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Mr. Vikram Sadia on the stage with a huge round of applause. Come on. Joining us on the stage, we have one who serves as Director, Growth India at Drip Capital, a global fintech company specializing in trade finance solutions for SMEs. Based in Mumbai, he drives market expansion, product adoption, and partnership development across India's export ecosystem. Everyone, please put your hands together for Mr. Deepak Gandhi, Director, Growth, Drip Capital. Can we have a round of applause? Last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, we have a personality who is a General Manager and Chief Underwriting Officer, Policy and Medium, Long-Term Business at ECGC Limited, India's official export credit agency under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. She oversees the risk assessment, policy design and underwriting of export credit and insurance cover for Indian exporters. Please allow me to welcome on the stage Mrs. Arpita Sen. Can we have a round of applause? Ma'am. Now handing over my mic to Mr. Sandeep Das, who will be moderating this one-of-a-kind session for all of us. Sir. इस बात को मुझे कहते हुए बहुत ही गर्व महसूस हो रहा है कि हमारे बीच हल्दीराम के फाउंडर मौजूद है श्री मधुसूदन जी। मैं चाहती हूँ एक बार जोरदार तालियों के सैलाब के साथ इनका स्वागत किया जाए। सर, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है और बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद है कि आपने अपना कीमती वक्त निकाला और यहाँ अपनी उपस्थिति दर्ज कराई। पूरी इस परिवार की तरफ से मैं आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत करना चाहूंगी। ठीक है। Now I would like to give my mic to Mr. Sandeep Das for moderating this one-of-a-kind session. Sandeep sir, do you have the mic?
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's start the session logistic, credit and insurance. As all panelists have been introduced here, let me first start with, because insurance, logistics, banking, these are all very critical backbone of the entire export value chain. Let me start with Mrs. Arpita Sen. Please throw a little bit of light on what you do and what are the things you help in terms of providing credit to the exporter and associates. Can you? And each we'll have 2 rounds of questions, and for each of the answers. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the question and giving this opportunity.
No, it's not working.
Yeah, is it not audible?
It's not.
It's audible.
You can come
Yeah.
little closer to the mic.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity today to address this gathering here. What you asked is about what is ECGC, what it does. So ECGC is a ECA of India, that is Export Credit Agency of India, which is 100% owned by Government of India, and it was established in the year 1957. And under the aegis of Ministry of Commerce and Industry, it is operating. And we have been in existence for the last 68 years, offering export credit insurance to the exporters and banks. So our vision is to support exports from India, and so that it is given by cost-effective insurance. And also we are giving other trade-related services. So we know as of now the market is fraught with risks, which global trade is very difficult to do, especially nowadays, because we are seeing geopolitical tensions, we are witnessing the tariff wars, and we are also seeing that there is increased incidence of insolvency and default. So it is now become imperative for the exporters to take insurance cover from the insurers, and ECGC is a pioneer in this credit risk insurance business. So ECGC has 2 verticals of business. One is for the exporters and one is for the other is for the bank. So both exporters and bankers are customers of ECGC. So this has a very double-pronged impact on the export industry, because when an exporter takes a insurance policy from ECGC, the banks are able to give liberal finances, because they know if any buyer defaults, overseas buyer defaults, or there is a default from an LC opening bank, then ECGC will make good for the loss. And the banks will be paid back the PCPS advances that they extend to the exporters. The other vertical that I was talking about is we also cover the banks who are giving the PCPS advances. So in that way, they are secured from ECGC in case the exporter takes the PC advance and doesn't do the shipment. Then they may face a loss. So ECGC is covering that risk also. And as we know, the MSME customers face a challenge in getting the PCPS advances from the banks. So the cover of ECGC is having a benefit in the sense that ECGC is covering the MSME accounts with a higher percentage of cover. And this enables the banks to give their PCPS advance at a reduced interest rate, and it also helps them to give the finances liberally. So this is what ECGC is able to help the exporters from India as well as the banks in this way.
Thank you, Mrs. Sen. Let me come to the next panel, Mr. Deepak Gandhi, who is a little bit of associated issues regarding basically innovative credit instrument and digital payment platform. If you can elaborate on that, actually.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deepak Gandhi. I'm representing a factoring company called Drip Capital. So, very short brief about Drip Capital is that we give factoring and discounting services to the exporters. We've been in the market for about 7-8 years, and we have pan-India presence. So to give you an understanding of our volumes, we fund close to about $1.2 billion worth of invoices every year. So happy to see we've already met some of our customers already today in the exhibition. So as far as that's about Drip Capital. And just to second what ma'am was saying a bit earlier, the last 12 months have been, there are 2-3 issues that we are seeing in the market today. So we are all aware that last year was a bit turmoil because of Algeria. We are seeing some excess capacity in some of the African nations, some in that part of the geography. US tariff issue is disrupting the supply chain. So how a company like Drip Capital, and for that matter any fintech, kind of comes into play is that today an opportunity opens in the market, for a customer, for an exporter, and if he uses traditional financing, the decision to extend credit limit becomes can take months. There's always an endless loop where audited are asked and GST is asked, right? And by the time the opportunity kind of is missed. So a company like Drip Capital is able to give a go ahead, in about 24 to 48 hours, and that's really the opportunity that we try and tap. That if today there is an exporter who is seeing an opportunity that exists in the market, they can go to this, entity, which is, you can call it a non-traditional financing entity, and avail an extra line of credit, in an overnight fashion, so that they are able to capitalize on the opportunity that exists today in the market. So that is the role today of a fintech and a player like Drip Capital.
Thank you, Deepak. Let me come to the next, Mrs. Sweta Boksit, who is Director Rajesh Gopal Food. She's an importer of rice, and please explain us about what are the challenges or what are the issues you face in terms of importing rice. And she's a German-based. So she will explain us about what are the challenges in terms of imports and what rice imports.
Thank you everybody for having me here. I'm very thankful that I've got a platform to raise my concern as an importers, because I've seen exporters raising their concerns, but I would say that importers' concerns are equally the exporters' concerns, because if importers are struggling, exporters will always struggle. So starting with concern number one, I would say it's just because the travel time is too high to Europe, our money gets stuck for a very long time. So when we pay in advance and when the ship is in voyage, and then by the time the shipment comes to us, we lose a lot of time. And then as a practice in Europe, we also give credit to our customers. So by the time we recover our money, it's too late. So it's 6 months, and then we have to make the next purchase and everything. So this is a cash flow killer for any business, and it's very, very demotivating. So I spoke to Mr. Gandhi about this factoring thing today. I was also proposing it earlier, like, if we can do the same process, like, so that the exporter also do not suffer from this cash flow killer and gets the money at the time of invoicing through invoice factoring. And as an importer, I get enough time to, and I don't pay in advance, and I get enough time to make another purchase. So I think, we need to, for all the stakeholders, it needs to be a win-win scenario. It needs to be win-win for the exporter. There is no cash flow crunch there, no cash flow crunch at the importer side. We both are happy, we both are winning. I can make purchases happily, freely, and then I can also introduce new products to the market. What happens now, there are only big players in the market who can really enter Europe. Because, of course, there are different challenges, logistical challenges, bureaucracy is also there. Also, the EU norms are pretty notorious, which we all know as in rice exporters. So for that, if a person who is not a really big player or not a seasoned player wants to enter the European market, the first thing that comes is the cash crunch. So I think that Mr. Gandhi and his company can definitely resolve. We can talk about it later. Another problem that I face is the product that are coming from India is not very innovative. Is this a traditional rice that we are exporting? Why are we not exporting the finished product of rice? I have met some people from Gujarat, but at a very small scale. They are making a finished product of rice where the margins are high. They are making this khichdi, freeze-dried khichdi, packed in a vacuum pack. It obviously saves the space in the container when it comes to us, saves our warehouse space also when it reaches our warehouse. And it's highly convenient. We are not looking at the market completely. There is a huge student population in Europe from of Indian origin or Indian background. And they study, they do part-time jobs. Cooking a full-fledged meal is definitely not an option for them. So coming up with the product which is convenient, delicious and nutritious, our indigenous variety of rice can be introduced in these khichdis and all the ready-to-eat products. I think that can be a great option also to traditional Europeans who don't cook rice at home because that's not their staple. They don't even know how to cook rice. Funny for us, but that's how it is. So, we can introduce these convenient food and that our food can be in the German supermarket shelf. What is happening, our Indian rice is with the Indian importers. It's not reaching its full potential because there is a lack of innovation, or I already see the innovation but lack of positioning. So we can work on that. These are the two things, a problem and also the solution that I would suggest. I think the people who are in the policy making can definitely take it forward from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sweta. Essentially, I think the purpose of this particular conference is also, this mega conference is all about exploring more opportunity in terms of expanding India's rice and the finished product you spoke about. And really problem faced by the Indians and the Indian diaspora about rice product essentially. And I also agree the point that the finished product should be more exported rather than only.
There are more margins. There is, of course, the shelf life will increase their margins. That's what we are all here for, making profits, right? So,
Sandeepji, if I can just come in, the first part of the problem is something that, I just came to my mind. I thought I'll use this platform to share, is that as far as the exporter community is concerned and the transit time is concerned, our company is the only company today in India who's also financing the transit time. So for example, if you're for an Indian exporter, if the payment terms are CAD, we can simply take, basis the original bill of lading, we fund the 80% of the value, 90% of the value of the invoice for the transit time. So as far as the Indian exporter is concerned, obviously it is financed. You can kind of just give the BL to us and, in a matter of 24 hours, up to about 80 to 90% of the value of the invoice is given upfront to the exporter. So let's assume the transit time is 40 days, right? So that credit period of 40 days is something that we provide for. And if obviously your payment terms are DA 30, 60, 90, that traditional we are also doing. As far as the basmati and khichdi and all that, the second part of the problem is concerned, that is something that Drip Capital cannot solve for.
Thanks, Deepak, for this insight. Let me come to our fourth speaker, Vikram Sadia. Vikram will touch upon the issue of freight. Because him to focus on the freight part, as Sweta also raised the issue of the time in terms of transportation and all. So you can talk about the freight and associated issues around that.
Thank you. And I would really like to thanks first of all IRF and BRC. It is really wonderful platform they have created in the first year, and it is wonderfully seeing so many people's importers, exporters, freight forwarders, and so many delegates actually has been arrived. Myself, Vikram, I'm actually from AgriSea Dubai, and we have actually launched one of the platform called AgriGuru Online. I would like to come to your question that how it is going to, face the challenges in the freight or how we are going to change it. I would love to say, first of all, that still we are in a very old fashion in the technology changes. If we see so many industries has been changed, like even if you see insurance, if you see banking, if you see other, sections. But export, import and the freight is still at the old fashion. And we are facing very, very big challenges regarding that we are
Old fashion means?
Old fashion means we are not still able to adopt the technology where we have a AI, we have a blockchain, we have a so many IoT, we have so many technologies which we should use it for our export import. Let's see about the ECGC, even a Drift Capital or as an exporter and importer. There is no one platform which provides a total standard platform where all can be a one platform together, right? So why, see like how we are trying to solve. We have added a products as well as a freight. So if any of the exporter or if any of the importer wants to know the standard freight, they can know easily. And there is another big challenge what we are facing, that is documentation. If you see any of the banking or any of the industry where they are actually creating for their users or their buyers or sellers accounts. But in an export-import, there is no technology has been adopted. What we are trying to solve for the freight, like we have added, let's see, 5 years data for the freight for particularly, let's see, from India to Africa or India to Mombasa or particular destination. Now there are prediction models are available where you can predict what's going to happen and there are dynamics which can solve those problems easily. And these all things can be a one platform together. So this can be also a one solution, and in the still there is no traceability going on, there is no time efficiency going on. So if you see, still we have a freight which is still following the old fashion in terms of current situation. So I would love that if we can sort it out through any of the digital channels or we can adopt those technologies, it will really help for most of the exporters, importers. Imagine Mr. Deepak can identify everything in a one platform that this shipment is going and it is traceable, right? See, right now in India, the bank is not able to trace down the BL. Still, they have to find out the container is here or actually at the destination. Even the exporter is not able to trace. Even they just say, okay, the shipment is about to reach. But actually the GPS tracking and the AI technology or either cloud channels also are still not able to adopt it. So I would really appreciate if those challenges we can sort it out through our channel or through our platform. It would be very important.
Interesting. I think this will also lead to the efficiency in transportation from producing countries to the exporting countries essentially. Let me come back to Mrs. Arpita Sen. Can you a little bit of what are the challenges in terms of export credit you face in terms of can you elaborate on that a bit? Current, particularly specific to the rice export, if you can say so.
So the first challenge that we see is the export insurance awareness. That is lacking in most of the exporters in the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and they don't take the insurance until they face a situation of a loss. And now, as I was saying that we are seeing all these disruptions in the global market, they have realized the importance of insurance, credit risk insurance. And now we are seeing increased demand for it, and we would be very happy if they realize it earlier, that awareness should be created, and we as a stakeholder are doing a bit to increase the awareness. The other thing is that we see that there are challenges in the global market where they are not able to navigate and change the destination. Suppose there is a problem in US, like we are seeing the tariff issue. Now to find a new emerging market, alternate market, they are not able to transition very easily. So that is where the insurers have a very big role to play. Like ECGC is covering 239 countries across the globe, and ECGC has never been off cover in any of the countries, whatever be the risk scenario. So this is one thing that the insurers can help the exporters to access the countries, the various countries. and
When you
all.
navigate through the challenging time,
Yeah,
US tariff and all,
Yeah.
the agency can help
yeah.
finding new markets or something.
Yes, because we are giving credit limits to the different alternate markets also. Like I said, we are covering 239 countries. So now if they want to shift from USA to say Africa or maybe Latin America, they can do so with the help of the insurance coverage that they are taking from ECGC. And we also need to support them in terms of the cover, because what happens is for MSME it is very difficult to absorb the losses. They generally are having very small working capital. One loss can wipe out the working capital to the total extent. So it is very important that the insurers cover them adequately. So here also I would like to say that ECGC has introduced 100% cover for the exporters subject to certain terms and conditions. So this is another advantage that the exporters are able to avail. And then also getting the credit limits in time. That is very important. Credit limits on the buyers, because they might not have been having much time in their hand before they have to ship the orders. So we should be able to give them some discretion, and that is also available with ECGC, that we give them a blanket cover on the buyers. If they suppose want to do business with a new buyer, even we will be able to cover those buyers in spite of they not having taken the credit limit subject to certain terms and conditions, but they can explore the entire global market with the help of the insurance support. And the thing is that the domestic, some of the exporters are also into domestic business. Now, when they face some problem in the global market, they always want to shift to the domestic market, because their focus will be then shifted to the domestic market to mitigate the losses or the loss in profit. So the insurers, if they can be a one-stop solution for all their credit risk insurance needs. Like, again, I will say, since I'm representing ECGC, that we are covering both the export trade as well as the domestic trade of the exporters. So they are having a one-stop solution when they are coming to ECGC. So these are the challenges they face, and also the MSMEs, as I was telling you, that they find it a challenge to get the financing from the banks. So it is here that ECGC plays a very important role, because they are covering the bank risk as well, means the risk faced by the banks on account of non-repayment of the export finances by the exporters. So since they are covered for this, the banks can liberally lend the finances, as well as they can lend at a very cheap rate, because we are giving higher percentage of cover for MSME accounts. So there are challenges, but there are solutions. So this is what we have to be very dynamic in this dynamic scenario and bring rapid changes. And as Sir was just addressing one issue, that integration of the different stakeholders. So here I would say, like, ECGC has a lot of digitalization in the pipeline. Like, they are going to integrate with the stakeholders like DGFT, then the customs, okay, to find what shipments have been done, for tracking the bills, and this integration will be through the API. So this is in the process. Of course, it will be some time when we will be able to launch this, but this is in our pipeline and vision. So that is what I wanted to comment here. Yeah.
Thank you for elaborating. I think the exporter here presence will be greatly benefited by this. Deepak, can you step in here with that? What are the innovative credit instrument you are looking at essentially in the current scenario? Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so just to elaborate on some of the challenges, see, information and data is an issue that we obviously face. So as for a finance company, there are two obligors. The obligor, one is the exporter. So taking the information from the exporter is pretty easy. There is GST, there is bureau, and there are traditional financials. So you are able to underwrite the exporter. So for example, if your exporter approaches us, giving him a $2 million line, $5 million line is not a problem. Then the second part of the problem is now this exporter has identified a new buyer, let's assume in Togo, Benin. The information there on that buyer is very, very limited. So the exporter himself is not working with that buyer or does not have a regular track record with that buyer. Now, how do I find the genuineness of that particular buyer and the, okay, you may also agree that, okay, the buyer is genuine, but how much is the risk that we should take? Should I give the buyer a 1 million line, 2 million line or 5 million line? In absence of data, we are unable to take that kind of call. So hence to kind of give a solution, we launched the CAD product which I was talking about, which is basically a cash against document. Now in a scenario where we do not, where I know the exporter is very good, we can give him as much line as we want. But I don't have sufficient information on a particular buyer. We simply ask the exporter to keep the bill of lading as kind of a collateral so that at least for the transit period, funds are readily available, right? And so for that particular 40-60 day period, depending upon where the shipment is going, that transit period we are able to finance, not worrying about who the particular buyer is. And once the payment is made to the finance company, the BL is simply handed over. So that was one way Drip Capital and our company tried to solve for the problem. But I completely agree with what Arpita ma'am was saying, that traditionally how much risk to take and how much insurance to give and where information and integration of all this information kind of still remains a challenge.
Sweta, as a importer, can you, hopefully this is very helpful to you in terms of, so can you elaborate a little more on what should be done ahead to smoothen our importer also?
Yeah, so take forward from Mr. Gandhi's point that, to check the credit worthiness of the buyer. I think in Europe, at least, there is a very good method of checking the credit worthiness. There are companies and, it's very transparent over there. So there, of course, I can guarantee, like if somebody has a bad score and all that, you would get the information and it's pretty transparent. So for Europe, I can guarantee, like, if they start the process of factoring or whatever, the recovery would not be that much of a nightmare. So risk is a little bit lesser than, I don't know about what Africa or other places how would it work for them. Other thing with this finance part, I would say I really feel for the small players in both sides, be it the importer side or the exporter side. It's very difficult for the person who's also an importer, for example, a bootstrapped importer over there. They have to resort to a person who's already working in Europe for the products because of these challenges, obvious challenges which I talked about earlier, the exporters not able to give them enough credit. So what is happening? The old time season importers are becoming bigger. So the new product entry, it's a great barrier because this old time players and bigger companies, they tend to not innovate that much because they have this standard operations, cost and everything. They do not have enough time probably for that. So we need to encourage this Mittelstand, as we call it in German, those mid-sized companies and small-sized companies. We really need to empower them here in India and also through factoring, invoice factoring outside India so that, they can bring new products and flourish there in the market. And in Germany, I've seen that, the German supermarkets have very, very small section of Indian products. Whereas you see the Italian products, the other Asian products, they're full. They have full one sections of all these products. Why not? There is a big diaspora. There are many, many Indian restaurants. So obviously there is a consumption for Indian products. But why not they are occupying the shelves of the German supermarket? This is the question we need to ask, and we have a great, great market there then. Thank you.
Thank you. And before coming to Vikram, I must tell you, in their audience, if you have any queries, you can start asking. There are 2 queries I can see. How AI can be used for specific. And do specify the questions you are asking to whom, the panelists.
Okay. Is it working? Yeah. Hi, my name is Vijay Ramanujam. I'm an ex-international banker. I now run an international banking and trade finance consultancy. I do a lot of India, Africa, rice, LC forfeiting, avalized draft discounting, and solutions. The question I have is for the panel, and one of the lady mentioned some very pertinent points about win-win solutions. Buyers in Africa are also increasingly looking for credit solutions, and that is a challenge. And as one of the panelists said, underwriting African buyer risk is a challenge in itself. For now, we have to rely on probably the buyer's bank doing that underwriting, and Indian exporters looking to underwrite the bank risk, which ECGC is more than capable of. What I find lacking is currently, I arrange all these solutions from international banks in Europe and different parts of the world, right? Indian banks, despite having, fantastic underwriting being done by ECGC, are not able to offer these solutions of, plain LC confirmation discounting. When is it going to dawn that we're going to see that Indian banks like State Bank of India or, even Exim Bank has a TAP program which currently covers only 80% of the risk? Today, if you go to an international bank in London, Paris, wherever they are, they can cover 100% of a Mali risk, 100% of a Burkina Faso risk, 100% of a Guinea risk or Senegal risk, right? So with, Chinese exporters have relied on Sinosure and others to sort of make forays to different parts of the world. When do we see, Indian banks, private government banks, and ECGC partner together and come up with a one-stop solution? Now currently what's happening is you have to take an ECGC insurance, and the banks offer recourse financing. They don't offer non-recourse financing. So the receivable is still on the balance sheet of the exporter, right? So if you go to international banks, they pay you immediately 100%, right? Yeah. So that's the question to ECGC. You have a solution already. When do you integrate it with banks and offer one single solution for clients?
Ms. Arpita, ma'am, you can answer this question.
So you are saying that these risks are still in the books of the exporter. Yeah, but of course insurers are giving the reimbursement to the banks, but it is not going to have, because insurers also have to sustain. So we have to also see that what is the recovery mechanism. It cannot be even the insured has to work as if they are not insured, because then the insurance company will not be able to sustain. So this has to be a proper synergy, and that is why we also support the exporters that they don't be defaulters to the bank, in the sense they can take policy on the risk of the LC opening bank or the buyer. They can take a policy on that, and we will pay to the exporter, from which they can make good for the loss of the PCPS advances that the bank has given. So from there they can give to the bank, so they won't be blacklisted, or it is not in their account, because the recovery mechanism will be happening to the buyer. In that case, the exporter will be following up, and ECGC gives a lot of support for the recovery. Like we tell them about what are the loss minimization efforts they can take, and there are debt collecting agents, so
Sure.
this can minimize the losses.
So madam, my question was, banks should be able to take these policies, either the exporter buying these policies and making the bank the loss payee or co-insured, or banks should be able to take the policy and give a one-stop both risk coverage and financing solution post-shipment for the client, either under an LC or an avalized draft, which is very popular in rice exports to Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Right. So that is the need of the hour.
yeah, so just I want to come here that we have the process of assignment of policy.
Sure.
So the assignment is done to the bank, and that is part of our policy terms and conditions.
Sure.
And also when we make a payment for the claims, it goes to the bank which has handled the documents. So it is ultimately going to the bank who has financed.
Sure.
And so that is how the banks will be ultimately the beneficiary of the policy also. But the only advantage is that since we have two verticals of business, the exporter can avail the export credit risk insurance facility and then pay back to the banks when the buyer defaults, because it is not always the exporter's fault. Sometimes after the shipment happens, the buyer is not able to pay. So in that case, should we penalize the exporter? So it should not be done. So we want to pay the exporter under the policy, and the bank is getting ultimately the benefit of that claim. because we always give the claim to the bank which has handled the document, and also there is a concept of assignment of the
Sure.
policy to the bank, as you were saying.
Sure.
So they can make use of that.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other queries?
Hello, and good afternoon. Myself, Naimish from London, UK, and my question is to Arpita ji. So, considering the recent cases where companies have fallen victims of fraud due to inadequate due diligence and leading to significant financial losses, how does ECGC view such situation in terms of responsibility and risk assessment? Moreover, what practical steps to recovery the mechanism are available for affected exporters? And there are some exporters, like in the market, they are new and that they have a lack of knowledge that how to avail the benefits of the ECGC platform. So what do you think about that? Like how they can take all these advantages?
Yeah. So the thing is that if a recovery is process is started early, it is always there is chance that the recovery will happen. The more they delay, the recovery chances dwindle. So what we do as a insurer, the moment we hear that there is some adverse experience of other exporters, we caution all the exporters who are holding limits on the buyers. And as a result, they also are able to monitor the shipments, whether they will do further shipments or not to those buyers. And then suppose if they have a loss, imminent loss, what are the loss minimization steps that they can take? We advise on that also. Like there could be a situation where the buyer is not able to pay right now, but if we give some extended due date, they might be able to pay a little later. So that is one option that they can explore. So there are umpteen number of ways in which some loss minimization can happen, and we advise the exporters accordingly. Like even they appoint debt collecting agents who are locally present there and can follow up with the buyer to get the proceeds. And also there are options like resale. Suppose the original buyer is not able to pay, resale can be done, then reshipment is possible. So all these loss mitigation efforts that they can take, we advise them. Finally, if they are not able to get the proceeds, there is always ECGC there for paying the claims. And we are underwriting all the buyers in 239 countries, as I told you. So we have a presence pan in the total global market. So we are underwriting all these buyers, and no buyer or no country is off cover. Means no country is off cover. Even when there were war situation in Russia, Ukraine, Israel. So we have never been off cover on any of these countries.
No.
So I think we are a very, not a fair weather friend, but we are a permanent friend of the exporters.
No,
Yes.
that's really great. But the thing is, there are 40 plus companies who has approached recently, and then obviously there are situations that like they may have received 10% or 20% of advance. And regarding the due diligence they have done, some of them are like based in particular region. I'm not going to say it, but they have in the market as well since long time, and they don't hesitate to default, and then they don't pay regardless. The documents, the bank receipt, and everything is there, but like it's all fake. And for that, particularly these exporters they have been to everywhere, DGFT. They have knocked every single door that you can think of, and there is no recovery. They have even take legal actions, and I'm not sure that like what are the possibilities they can recover. And some of the families that I have received an email from, they are in the edge of or in the verge of losing their life.
I really don't know which exporter has faced this, but
From India.
ECGC, so it is from India only, but if they are with ECGC, I can tell you that we will be very supportive. Right from the default stage, anything, even if he has not a default, he has not got a default, any other exporter has got a default, we inform all the exporters. And ECGC has a option of placing buyers in the buyer specific approval list. So this acts as a deterrent to default. If we are placing the buyer in BSAL, they won't be able to import from India at all. So that is also a pressure which ECGC is creating on the buyers, and it is helping the exporters to recover.
Thank you. before further taking up further question, let me come back to Vikram, essentially to talk a bit about use of AI in freight, how you can, your efficiency in the operation can be improved using AI and freight and all. Can you?
Yeah. See, if you see, right now, AI is shaping the whole industry. And collecting the data and gathering the data is the difficult part. And right now, what is actually the big asset is in the market is the information and the data. So the data science and AI and all these things are actually really changing. How this AI is going to? I remember there is one Chinese company who are actually like a ECGC. They have a one platform and they are collecting even not only for the China export import. They are collecting the whole world data. And those export credit agencies or either a financer like a Drift Capital, they are collecting all the, let's see, Mr. Gandhi has just mentioned one of the point that those importers are very small. Now the AI can solve this problem, all of this, because why the small companies are importing? Because in Africa, there is a big challenge which is a taxation, because everybody wants to save the tax in Africa. So today they have a one company, tomorrow they have another company. So now AI can solve this problem by collecting those data and then predict the models. Right now we have collected like, let's see, 5 years data for the freights. Those freights, there is a prediction model, can give all the dynamics. It is affecting what was the last year the freight, what was the before 2 years freight, and what was the yesterday freight. And that whole the data analytics, if you have seen, because see, we all are familiar like a stock market and there is an algo is working. So how the AI is actually shaping, that is actually changing. But still, as I said, we are not adopting. So AI will change all the data. Now, as I give you an example, if you see and come on our platform, we have created all the 5 years database for the particular destination. For the particular destination, you check all the freight from the 5 years to till today, and there is a prediction model for the, like we have also built, AI in the terms of different language, LLM and models with the help of other AI companies. And those AIs, we just put the data, there is a chart, and then you just click on it, you'll get within a few seconds, whole report, what was the last year, what was the today, what is going to happen with either it is a dynamics, it's a price fluctuation, either it's a government policy, what was the last year, how the Baltic index is going to affect it, how the crude oil, how the currency. So this way, if we get together and we really adopt the AI technology and we really actually use it like how China or how European companies are having it, then it would be really helpful for all those agencies and all those exporters and importers. That would be easy for them to trace down and traceability. So I think we should focus on the changing the technology and adopt more and more charges.
Thank you so much. Is there any queries from the audience? If you because we need to finish. We are at the last stage of this technical session.
Thank you so much for this deep, insightful session. I have one question and I have a comment. So like you mentioned the food products in Germany. I did my PhD in Germany and I stayed there for over 13 years. I did my PhD in Germany. I stayed there for...
Louder.
Hello? Yeah. So this is the question and comment regarding the food availability in Germany from the Indian markets. So I stayed there for 13 years for my PhD and postdoc, and something that you mentioned hit me quite hard because yes, the students do need the products there which are not available in the German supermarkets, and most of the consumers of the Indian products that are being exported are Indians in Germany and the African community as well. So my question is, what kind of products can we convert from the raw food material procured in India that can be a target product in the shelves of Rewe or DM or the food markets over Germany? Yeah.
since we are in this talking about rice more, I think there could be a lot of rice-based products that we can make as end product, ready to eat or ready to cook. I would say khichdi, pulao, biryani, and we can use indigenous rice varieties, because I personally have taken those red rice because it was in trend and I don't know how to cook it, and it was just lying on my shelf forever. So if we know how to cook it, or we get a really ready to eat or cooked product, we know if we like the taste, we might purchase the raw product. That it would be we can go back and buy other ingredients also. But I think, we can start with the rice product, because veganism is on rice. Then there is gluten intolerance. All of that, we can really tap the rice-based product, end product, ready to eat and ready to consume product because of these things. And I see that a lot of new people in Germany, Indian, non-Indian, or maybe Germans, they are turning vegan.
Yes.
So this product can really tap the market and can be really successful. This is one product I would say, and other rice-based product could be rice cakes, rice cookies, and other things. But this is close to my heart because it is very close to the Indian taste that we grew up with, the khichdi and the pulaus and everything. That definitely can be done.
True.
Thank you. Is there anyone? Okay. We have ended this particular session, and it was quite critical, the inputs from all the panelists essentially, because this logistic, banking, insurance are very crucial part of the backbone of the export industry. Thank you so much for your participation, and thank you so much for putting up some of the questions basically. Hopefully the all exporter presence here will be greatly benefited, and you can talk to them perhaps after this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to all the speakers for your valuable time and such insightful discussion. I'd request all of you to come forward for a group photo before you leave the stage. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now moving forward for the next session. So I would request all of you to have all your attention towards the stage, as we are going to talk about a very powerful topic right now, right away.